All right, joining me now, Robert Greenway, former Senior Director for Middle Eastern Affairs at the National Security Council and currently President and Executive Director of the Abraham Accords Peace Institute. Rob, thank you for coming on the show. We appreciate it very much. Look, I'm just, I grow weary each day with this backpedaling and defensiveness. You can't get a straight answer out of them. And this whole business, it sounds like we are afraid of what Iran and the terrorists are going to do, whereas Iran and the terrorists ought to be very afraid of what the United States could do. Or do I have this story wrong?
You're 100% right, and appreciate you having me on. The only people that are deterred right now are the United States, and we're trying to deter Israel from conducting a necessary ground campaign into Gaza. In the last 7 days, we've been attacked 9 times by Iran and their proxies and surrogates. Right now, the only response to this is not to block a punch, is to return one. And until we do, we're going to continue to be the victim in this. And you're absolutely right. It will not stop unless we stop it. And it's ultimately what led to the strike against Qasem Soleimani. And when we did, we stopped and restored deterrence. The administration has to do the same thing.
What is Kirby talking about? Kirby says we're going to show deterrence. And then he says, we're increasing the sanctions. Now, maybe he means the Hamas sanctions, which are of no impact or consequence whatsoever. But for 3 years nearly, they have been overlooking the Iranian sanctions. I mean, he says this stuff, Rob, and I don't know what he's talking about. And that's why I don't mean to make it personal, because that's not my way. But, I remember years ago with George W. Bush during the Iraq War, and you had this crazy harebrained guy, Baghdad Bob, making excuses for Saddam Hussein. Kirby can't keep saying stuff that is simply not true. I'll give you a whack at it. What new deterrence, what new sanctions is he talking about? And where is it? Show me the facts.
Well, he's not. The only facts are that we continue to get attacked because there's no consequence as a result of it. He's in an awkward position because if the administration recognized Iran's role in this, we'd have to confront that their policies have failed and that they have to reverse course. They want to do neither. And so as a result, he's unfortunately left at the podium and he's got nothing to say.
Yeah, well, look, he doesn't have to stay there. I mean, he could move away from the podium and take another job, I suppose. But I'm still hot on this, John Ratcliffe, whom you know, and Robert O'Brien, whom you know, have given powerful testimony yesterday, last night on the show, and Friday evening on the show. Americans were killed, Rob. Americans were killed. Americans have been taken hostages, and the Iranians or their puppets have been shooting at American assets in the Middle East. Now, these are acts of war. And I don't understand. The United States hasn't declared war, at least not clearly and plainly, against them. And they still have this fiction, and this is driving me crazy, they still have this fiction that Iran was not directly involved in the Hamas operation. Now, how does one, you're a former National Security Council guy, how do you defend that view?
You don't. In the end of the day, they're too clever by half. Everyone knows this. They're publicly saying they're responsible for it. They fund, arm, train, equip, control, and deploy these assets. We all know it. The Wall Street Journal and the New York Times article have publicly disclosed it. The only one that doesn't seem to recognize this fact is Admiral Kirby. And it's, again, an awkward position to be in. And everyone in the region sees it. And when that's the case, you have chaos and a regional escalation, and the conflict will have dire consequences. So you're exactly right. There is no way to defend Iran. There is no way to claim that they are not, in fact, responsible. They're clearly behind it all.
Now, going into this battle, Israel's battle, yes, we have warned Hezbollah to stay out. But is Hezbollah listening to our warnings? In other words, I understand what's been said. Israel's been much tougher on Hezbollah than we have. We don't warn Iran. We don't say, for example, all right, Americans were killed, you're to blame. American hostages were taken, you're to blame. Or they say, if another American is killed, you're going to be to blame. There's no retaliation. That's the kind of direct deterrence that I'm looking for. Now, that may not be that may not be doable, but it's not clear to me. As you said before, Trump took out Soleimani, and we didn't hear a whimper out of Iran. Why didn't we hear a whimper out of Iran? Because they didn't have any resources. Why didn't they have any resources? Because we stuck it to them with the sanctions. The sanctions worked. They were basically broke, didn't have foreign exchange reserves, were hardly selling any oil at all. That's all changed now. So I don't see how American warnings have such an impact on Hezbollah or Iran or anybody else for that matter. Houthis, I mean, they don't take us seriously.
No, they don't take us seriously. And look, at the end of the day, these surrogates are designed by Tehran to absorb the cost so they don't have to. And the surrogates and proxies like Hamas and Hezbollah will die to the last Lebanese or the last Palestinian in Gaza. So to Tehran's perspective, the plausible deniability is a veneer that works for them unless you take it away. And in the Trump administration, as you know, we didn't allow them to stand behind that plausible deniability. We held them accountable. And it was one contractor in Erbil that led ultimately to the strike against Soleimani. And as you said, we've got 33 dead Americans. It's impossible for me to conceive circumstances in which we don't use force to restore deterrence.
You know, to use force to restore deterrent, right on. Mr. Biden never really talks about the American lives lost. I mean, he mentioned them in his speech the other night, Thursday night, as part of the statistics. But he never dwells on it or the meaning of it or the fact that this is a direct attack on the United States. You kill our boys, you kill our boys and women and so forth. You kill our armed services. This armed forces, that's a direct attack. Why doesn't he make that point, Rob? Why is he missing that? What am I missing about what he's missing?
Again, I think he's afraid to confront the reality that his policies have failed and contributed to the whole circumstance. We put a price tag on American citizens when we paid $6 billion in ransom. And when we fail to act when one of our citizens are killed, all we do is encourage it to happen again. Unfortunately, this has got to be stopped. I don't know what it's going to take to do it. I hope it's not the death of an American civilian or service member, but that's where we're headed.
All right. Rob Greenway, we appreciate it very much. Hope you'll come back soon.